Hello, my loves. Welcome in. Tonight we are talking about the Mars-Uranus conjunction, and specifically we're talking about Gemini, Sagittarius, and Virgo, the three signs standing at a threshold right now that they are not going to be able to step back from. If you're a Pisces, stay with me too. This one touches you as well, and I'll tell you why. So here's what's happening. On July 4th, Mars meets Uranus at 3 degrees Gemini. Now, Mars and Uranus come together roughly every 2 years, so that alone isn't unusual. What is unusual is where it's happening. The last time Mars and Uranus met in the sign of Gemini was August of 1947. That's nearly 80 years ago. Most of us have never lived through this specific alignment, and we won't see it at this degree again in our lifetime. And here's the detail I really want you to sit with, because this is the piece that changes everything about how we understand this transit. At the exact moment of this conjunction, Mercury, the planet that rules Gemini, the planet that governs this entire event, is retrograde in Cancer, which means the planet in charge of this decisive, lightning-fast energy is looking backward. It's sitting with memory. It's processing emotion. What that tells me is that whatever decision is crystallizing for you right now, it isn't sudden. It only looks sudden. You've been carrying this for a while, maybe months, maybe longer than that. Something has been building in you a knowing, a restlessness, a quiet clarity that you haven't acted on yet because the timing didn't feel right, or because the cost felt too high, or because some part of you kept hoping the situation would just resolve itself. Mars conjunct Uranus doesn't start a fire. It lights the match you've been holding for months, the one you kept telling yourself you'd put down. Now, I want to add a layer of historical context here, because I think it helps us understand the weight of this transit. 1947. The last time Mars met Uranus in Gemini was a year of profound, irreversible change in the world. Indian independence and the partition, the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan. The entire shape of the post-war world was being decided, and the decisions made that year echoed for generations. This conjunction in Gemini has always carried that quality, the quality of a line being drawn, a direction being chosen. And there's something worth sitting with here. Ask your mother or your grandmother what was happening in the family around that time, what decisions were being made, what directions were being chosen. Because these cycles echo through generations in ways that can surprise you. Now, this transit isn't happening in isolation. The wider sky is supporting what this conjunction sets in motion. Uranus, at 3 degrees Gemini, is moving toward a sextile with Neptune at 4 degrees Aries, which perfects on July 15th. That sextile brings a quality of spiritual clarity, the kind where the decision you've just made starts to feel not just brave, but right, like something deeper than logic is confirming it. And Uranus is also building toward a trine with Pluto in Aquarius, exact in November. That trine is structural. It means the ground is shifting to support whatever you build from this moment forward. This isn't just a flash of courage that leaves you exposed. There's a foundation forming underneath it. And then on July 20th, just 16 days after the conjunction, Jupiter in Leo opposes Pluto in Aquarius. That opposition amplifies everything about power, visibility, and refusing to stay small. It's particularly relevant for Virgo, and I'll explain why when we get there. But for all three signs, it means the decision you make in early July gets a second wave of energy, pushing it forward before the month is over. If you've been feeling a restlessness since late June, a sense that something needs to shift, that you cannot keep going the way you have been, you're not imagining that. You're feeling this conjunction building in your body before your mind has the words for it. And if you're carrying a decision right now that you haven't told anyone about, I'd love to hear from you. Just drop one word in the comments. One word for what it's about. You don't have to explain it. I'll understand. Now, let me show you exactly how this conjunction lands for the three signs who will feel this most deeply and what the irreversible decision actually looks like for each of you. Gemini. Let's start with you, because this conjunction is landing directly in your first house. The first house is the house of self, your identity, how you present yourself to the world, who you are at the most fundamental level. When Mars meets Uranus here, at 3 degrees of your own sign, this is about as personal as a transit can get. This isn't about your job or your relationships, although those may be affected. This is about you, who you've been performing as versus who you actually are. Now, you got a preview of this when Uranus first dipped into Gemini back in July of 2025. For some of you, that brief window showed you something, a flash of who you could be, if you stopped adjusting yourself for everyone else's comfort. And then Uranus retrograded back into Taurus in November, and maybe you thought that feeling would go away. It didn't, did it? It just went underground. Mars arriving now brings the energy to act. And I want to be specific about what that means for a Gemini at this stage of life. You are the sign of duality. You see every side of everything. That's your gift, but it can also become a prison when it means you never actually choose. You've spent decades being adaptable, being the one who reads the room and becomes what's needed, the one who adjusts. And somewhere in all that shape-shifting, you may have lost track of which version is actually you. This conjunction is what I'd call an identity arrival, not a crisis, an arrival. A crisis is confusion. An arrival is clarity that scares you because it means things have to change. The irreversible decision for Gemini might look like finally saying, "This is who I am," in a way that changes how people see you. It could be an external change that reflects an internal truth. Walking away from a social role or a family expectation or a version of yourself that you've been maintaining for other people's comfort. And here's what I want you to hold on to. Mercury retrograde as the ruler of this event means that while others might see your decision as coming out of nowhere, you know in your bones that this has been building for a very long time. You're not being reckless, you're being honest. And the people who truly love you will not be threatened by who you're becoming. They've been waiting for her. Gemini, if that landed for you just now, I'd love to hear what's shifting. Tell me in the comments. Sagittarius. This conjunction sits directly opposite your sign, which means it's activating your 7th house, the house of committed partnerships, of marriage, of the person who stands across from you in life. An opposition is always a mirror. Whatever Mars and Uranus are doing, it's showing up through your closest relationships or through something you've been holding back inside one. And I need to say something directly to you, Sagittarius, because I think you need to hear it. You are the sign of truth. You value honesty more than almost anything. It's the quality people love most about you and the quality that has gotten you into the most trouble. And yet, in your closest relationships, you've been editing yourself, softening what you really feel, choosing peace over truth. Not because you're dishonest, but because you love the person across from you and you didn't want to hurt them. Or because you weren't sure you had the right to want something different. Mars conjunct Uranus in your 7th house doesn't create problems in your relationships. It reveals the ones that were already there. It turns on the lights. What this might look like is a conversation that rewrites the terms of a marriage, a boundary that's never been spoken, a partnership, business or personal, where you finally say, "This isn't working for me anymore." Or it could be the opposite direction entirely. After years of keeping someone at a careful distance, you finally let them all the way in. Both are irreversible. Both require courage. There are words that work like doors. Once you say them out loud, you're standing in a different room. You can't go back through, but you also couldn't breathe in the old one anymore. Now, I want to prepare you for something. Neptune stations retrograde just 3 days after this conjunction. on July 7th. And with Mercury already retrograde in Cancer, the emotional intensity around whatever you say or do in early July will be significant. There may be a wave of, "Did I go too far?" a few days after the conversation. Let that wave pass. It's just the old version of you trying to pull you back to safety. You don't need that kind of safety anymore. At this age, you know something important. You know the difference between a relationship that challenges you to grow and one that requires you to shrink. This transit is about refusing to shrink anymore. And Sagittarius, your honesty has always been your gift, even when it costs you. Especially when it costs you. This transit isn't punishing you. It's asking you to use that gift where it matters most. If there's a conversation you've been rehearsing in your head for longer than you'd care to admit, just tell me. You don't have to share the details. Just, yes, that's enough. Virgo. For you, this conjunction activates your 10th house career, public role, reputation, and legacy. A square is the most friction-producing aspect in astrology, and I won't pretend this one is gentle. It isn't, but I have learned over many years of reading charts that the square is where the real growth happens, precisely because it won't let you stay comfortable. Virgo, I need to say something to you directly, and I say it with love. You have confused being needed with being valued. They are not the same thing. You are the sign of service. You show up. You do the work. You make it better. You hold things together so quietly that people don't even realize the thing would fall apart without you. And that quality has defined your career, your public role, your entire adult identity. But somewhere along the way, and it happened so gradually, you probably didn't notice service became self-erasure. You've been building something, and this conjunction is here to ask a very direct question. Whose dream is it? Yours, or the system you got absorbed into? The irreversible decision for Virgo might be a resignation. It might be going public with a project you've kept to yourself for years. For some of you, it's retirement, but not the passive kind. The kind where you actively choose what the next chapter holds, rather than letting it default to, "I just stopped working." And there may be a confrontation along the way. A moment where you have to choose between keeping the peace and claiming your worth. Virgo hates confrontation. Mars doesn't care. Now, remember that Jupiter-Pluto opposition I mentioned, Jupiter in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius on July 20th. For Virgo, that transit hits your 11th and 5th houses, amplifying themes of visibility and creative authority. It means the decision you make in early July doesn't just stay private. It gets seen. It draws attention. And for a sign that's spent a lifetime doing excellent work behind the scenes, being visible can feel almost as frightening as the decision itself. But Virgo, what is a legacy if no one knows it's yours? The 10th house is about what your life meant, not just what you did for a living. Mars conjunct Uranus is squaring your sense of self and asking, is the story of your career the story you actually wanted to tell? Because if it isn't, this is the window where you start writing a different one. And you've been ready for this longer than you think. You've done the research, you've run the numbers in your head, you've imagined the conversation 100 times. Virgo doesn't do anything unprepared, even when it looks spontaneous to everyone around you. Trust that preparation now. If there's something you've been building quietly, working toward, that nobody in your life even knows about, let this be the place where it becomes real. Tell me in the comments. I want to hear about it. And Pisces, I promised I'd come back to you. This conjunction squares your 4th house, the house of home, family, roots, and the deepest part of your private life. At 3 degrees Gemini, it's forming a hard square to any Pisces placements in the early degrees of your sign, and the friction is real. The decision you're carrying may involve where you live finally selling the house that holds too many memories, or choosing to move closer to the people who actually show up for you. It might be a family dynamic that has run its course, telling your adult child that something needs to change between you, or setting a boundary with a sibling who has taken your gentleness for granted for too long. Pisces, you are the sign that absorbs other people's pain and calls it love. This transit is asking you to put that down. You are not being selfish, you are being honest. And your honesty heals more than your silence ever did. If you're a Pisces sitting with a fourth house decision tonight, I hear you too. Tell me. Now that you understand where this is landing in your chart, let me give you something practical to do with it. There are several dates I want you to write down. June 28th is when Mars enters Gemini. You'll feel the energy start to gather, conversations becoming more direct, a restlessness building, a sense that something is approaching. July 1st through the 3rd, Mars closes to within 1 degree of Uranus. Pay attention during this window to what surfaces in your thoughts, in your dreams, in your arguments. July 4th is the exact conjunction. If a decision crystallizes on that day, trust it. July 7th, Neptune stations retrograde. This is the "did I really just do that" moment. Let it pass. And then July 15th, Uranus forms its sextile with Neptune in Aries, and you'll start to feel a broader confirmation settling in beneath whatever just shifted. If you know your birth chart, look for any planets or angles between 1 and 5 degrees of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces. Those placements will feel this conjunction most directly. If you don't know your chart, the sign-based guidance still applies, and your rising sign will be the most accurate for house placements. Here's something practical you can do. On June 28th, when Mars enters Gemini, sit down and write out the decision you're carrying. Be honest on that page. It doesn't have to be eloquent, just true. Then revisit what you wrote on July 15th. See what shifted. This is the kind of inner work that compounds quietly. You won't see the results immediately, but in August, you'll look back and understand exactly what moved. And if you're feeling called to work with this energy more intentionally, to create a real container for this transition, I put together the New Beginnings Purification Ritual for exactly this kind of threshold. The link is in the description at mailinastro.com if you'd like to explore it. One more piece I want you to understand, and I think this is important for perspective. This July 4th conjunction is the first of 4 Mars-Uranus conjunctions in Gemini that will unfold over the next several years. The next ones arriving in 2028, 2030, and 2032. This isn't a single event. It's the opening chapter of a much longer story. Whatever decision you make now sets a direction. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to begin. The next 6 years will refine what starts here. That should take some pressure off. You're not making the final decision. You're making the first honest one, and that's enough. Now, before I let you go, I want to broaden this out. Even if you're not Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, you are living through this transit. 3 degrees of Gemini activates something in every chart. If you're a Leo or Aquarius, this conjunction forms supportive aspects to your sign. Watch for doors opening more easily than expected, connections clicking into place, a sense of momentum that feels almost effortless. For Aries and Libra, the energy is cooperative. Unexpected information may arrive that clarifies a situation you've been sitting in fog about. For the fixed signs, Taurus and Scorpio, you're between eclipse cycles right now. This isn't your loudest transit, but pay attention to how other people's decisions create openings you didn't see coming. For Cancer and Capricorn, there's a gentle activation happening around creativity and shared resources. Stay open. Nobody is untouched by a Mars-Uranus conjunction. The question is just whether you're the one making the decision or responding to someone else's. And here's what I want to leave you with tonight, the thing that sits underneath all the degrees and house placements and historical context. There is a particular kind of courage that belongs to this stage of life. It's not the reckless courage of youth the kind where you leap because you don't yet know what you stand to lose. This is something different. This is the clear-eyed courage of a woman who knows exactly what she could lose and moves forward anyway, because she also knows what she will lose if she doesn't. And that loss, the slow, quiet loss of staying in a life that no longer fits, is the one she's no longer willing to accept. Mars-Uranus conjunctions have been present at every major turning point in modern history. The Declaration of Independence in 1776, the end of the Civil War, the close of World War II. Not because this aspect forces dramatic events into being, but because it provides the energy to act on what people already know to be true. You already know what your decision is. You've known for a while. This transit doesn't give you the answer. It gives you permission to stop pretending you don't already have one. And the irreversible part, the part the title names, the part that might have felt frightening when you clicked on this video, that isn't the scary part. The scary part was all the years of living with the reversible choice. The choice to keep things the same, to keep waiting, to keep hoping it would just resolve on its own. That was the hard part. The decision itself, when it finally comes, is actually the relief. The stars don't push you off the cliff. They show you that what you thought was a cliff is actually a step. A high one, yes, but a step. So, whether you're a Gemini standing at the mirror, finally recognizing the woman looking back, or a Sagittarius sitting across from someone you love, finding the words you've held in your throat for too long, or a Virgo staring at a blank page that's ready, finally ready for your words, your vision, your name at the top, or a Pisces turning the key in a door you've been standing in front of for longer than anyone knows. You are not being reckless. You are being real. And there is nothing braver than a woman who decides, after all this time, to be real. Come back and tell me when this lands for you. Tell me in July. Tell me in August. Tell me a year from now, when you can see what this moment started. I'll be here. I'm always here. And if this kind of depth is what you've been looking for in your astrology, I'm here every week. I would love to have you. Thank you for being here with me tonight. Take care of your heart, and I'll see you in the next one. Be brave, my love. You're ready.